Let me show you how to add a starter knot to the piece of thread that you're going to be stitching with. So I've got 6 strands of floss here, but the same would apply if you had, say, 2 strands or 3. So what we want to do is pop a knot nice and near one end of the thread. So I'll show you how to do a really simple overhand knot. Hold the thread quite close to one end and then grab the tail and cross it over the main section. So you can kind of work with how much thread you need, but see how there I've got the tail and that's crossing over the main section. Now what I want to do is tuck that tail in around behind and then bring it through the loop to the front. I'm going to tighten that up, but the key is I want my knot to land nice and close to the end. So I'm actually just going to gently push up with my thumb as I tighten it. And that means my knot is not too far from the end. Now, if you're working with 6 strands of floss, 1 knot's probably enough. But if you're only working with 2 or 3 strands, you might find you need to actually do exactly the same again and try and land another knot right on that spot. So I'll just show you again. So I'm holding the thread quite near the end. I'm going to take the tail and cross it over the main piece of thread. And then I'm going to tuck that tail around the back and through the loop, and then I'll pull it tight. I think the key though is if I pulled that tight, I'll probably end up with a knot quite far away. But instead, I'm going to use my other hand to gently push that knot into the position I want. Just reposition it there. Okay, so here we go. I can see it's almost on the other knot. So now I'll tighten up. And now they've landed on top of each other. So that's how we add a starter knot to our piece of thread. Okay, let's talk about unwinding our floss. So remember how I said stranded embroidery floss is made up of individual strands of floss that are all twisted together to make what looks like one piece of thread, but it's actually 6 stranded pieces all twisted up. And the same applies if you're stitching with, say, 3 strands and you've got a knot at the end and you're ready to start stitching with that, or it might be even 2. What I want you to have a think about is taking this step to unwind those strands of floss and then smooth them all back together. And it's going to mean your thread's a lot nicer to work with. It creates a smoother effect as it goes through the fabric, and it's way less likely to tangle. So you might be thinking, oh, what a pain to stop and do this. I just want to thread my needle and get started. But believe me, this step of unwinding your floss will be really helpful. And before long, you'll just do it in your sleep and you won't even notice the step happening as you work your way through your patterns. So there's quite a few different ways you can do this, and some people like to separate one strand off at a time and then regroup them and knot them. But what I like to do is, well, I'll show you the way I like to do it. So we've already knotted our piece at one end. Now we're going to hold the thread quite near the end, and I'm just going to get my nails and I'm going to split. I'm working with 6 strands here, remember. I'm going to split it into 3. And now I'm just going to slowly drag my finger down, going really slowly. See how it wants to tangle up? We just need to go slowly so that it doesn't get into a knot. And there we go. All right, so now we've got it into 2 lots of 3. But I think I want to go a step further and actually separate out the 3s into singles. You could go ahead and smooth it out now, but let's just take a moment more. Let's split the 3 out into a 2 and a 1 and slowly smooth that out. That should be fine. I'm going to do that on the other side too. So I'll separate that other group of 3 into a 1 and a 2, and I'm just slowly dragging my fingers down that thread. Really wants to tangle, doesn't it? But because I've gone slowly, we should be okay. All right, so it looks a bit of a mess now. So what I'm going to do next is just run my fingers down the thread to smooth it out. And now my thread's ready to stitch with, but we've unwound all the strands of floss from each other and smoothed them out, and it'll be so much nicer to work with.